The girl just wanted to take a photo, but she accidentally photographed the murder scene. However, the murderer was busy killing people and did not notice him. The girl quickly ran towards the woods behind her, found her uncle and left. But what he didn't expect was that not only was his uncle not in the car, but in order to find him, he bumped into the murderer who was disposing of the body. At this time, he was in the dark. When the girl came back, she saw the two of them chatting.
Roger! No!
Just when the uncle turned around, he was shot in the head by the murderer. Then he pointed the gun at the girl and was about to shoot. The camera on the girl attracted him. Just as the killer was stunned, the girl turned and ran away. In panic, he ran to a farmer's house. Seeing his panic, the man hurriedly asked him what happened.
What happened? Somebody hurt you?
Following the direction of the bullet, he looked into the distance and saw a masked killer walking towards him. Before he could get up, another shot was fired. The man quickly retreated into the house, closed the door. With only 2 bullets left, he loaded the gun. The killer kicked open the door and was about to rush in. Unexpectedly, the man dodged and shot. Although it hit the killer, it was not fatal. However, the man was stuck at the entrance of the stairs. The killer didn't shoot rashly, and the man only had 1 bullet left and didn't dare to shoot rashly. One of them was upstairs and the other was in a stalemate downstairs. The killer picked up the bullet casings that the man dropped when he fired, and he could see at a glance that although the man's gun was powerful, it had a limited range. So she told the man that with this broken gun, she might as well hand over the girl obediently and save his life. After hearing this, the man shouted,
I got plenty, buddy! Just try and come up them fucking stairs again, okay?
You absolutely cannot lose in terms of momentum. He also told the killer that he would call the police and ask him to leave as soon as possible. But the killer was not so easy to deceive. He found a phone downstairs, but he couldn't make any calls. The only cell phone was found on the 1st floor. In other words, she had no way to ask for help from the outside world. Seeing that the situation was favorable to him, the killer shouted to the man again that as long as he handed over the girl, she would leave immediately. Then, she cleaned the wound with alcohol, then burned the dagger red, and endured the severe pain to treat the wound. The man put the light bulbs in the bath towel, and then squeezed them to burst. In the girl's surprised eyes, the man scattered the glass shards on the stairs, so that she could hear the movement when the killer went upstairs, and also let her have time to relax. And after the killer dealt with the wound, he became more and more impatient. She started shooting into the house to scare the man into giving in. Unexpectedly, 2 gunshots were heard by the police at the scene of the crime. The tide began to swing in the man's favor as police followed the sound of gunfire to the house. Seeing the police arriving outside, the killer took the initiative to greet him, but he did not open the door. Instead, he put on his hood and stood there waiting for the police to come and die. After hearing a knock on the door, he fired a shot outside, and the subsequent sound of falling to the ground proved that he was right. Opening the door, a young police officer was lying on the ground. At this moment, the man and girl upstairs were preparing to escape. Unfortunately, the girl happened to be seen by the killer when she came downstairs, and the two looked at each other. After the confrontation, the girl was so frightened that she crawled back again. The killer dragged his injured body outside and wanted to shoot the girl several times, but he ran out of bullets. At this time, the injured police officer took the opportunity to draw his pistol, but unfortunately, she was not only knocked unconscious by the killer, but also provided the opponent with a weapon. Then, she drove the police car into the carport to avoid further police finding the place. But this was an excellent opportunity for the man. She opened the small door next to her, pointed her gun at the killer who was walking out of the carport, and threatened her to leave quickly, otherwise he would kill her now. But the killer had no idea after hearing this. Panicked, she began to tease the man with words. She seemed to have guessed that the man only had 1 bullet, otherwise she would have shot him. The two talked nonsense for a long time, which further strengthened the idea of the killer. Suddenly, she pulled out her pistol and the man, upon seeing this, he immediately returned to the house. Just like that, the killer became more confident. He then tied the young police officer to a chair, then picked up a hammer and smashed it hard on the police officer's fingers. The police officers let out heart-rending cries. The killer wanted to use this method to make the 2 people upstairs feel guilty, but he didn't expect to be scolded by the man. He asked the girl to hide in the room and cover her ears. When the killer saw that this didn't work, he shot the police officer to death. Then there was no movement downstairs. The man thought that the killer had left without succeeding, so he went down the stairs to find out. But when he got to the 1st floor, he found that there was only a pair of boots left, so she guessed that the killer had gone up to the 2nd floor. Sure enough, he saw the ladder outside, and the girl heard a noise on the 2nd floor and thought the man was back, but she didn't expect it to be the killer. At this moment, the man came back. The killer panicked for a moment and fell down the stairs. When she stepped on the glass, she let out a wail. This made the man so happy that he mocked the killer. However, how happy you are now will be how sad you will be later. The furious killer wanted to light the house on fire, but then he put out the lighter and took out the man's cell phone. At night, the car lights came on outside, but the killer was not afraid at all, because just now she used the man's cell phone. He used this cell phone to call his ex-wife. That is to say, Now it is the man's ex-wife who comes from the outside. The killer uses the ex-wife as a bargaining chip to get the man to hand over the girl, and this is the man's weakness. He began to struggle. He handed the gun to the girl and asked him to pull the trigger when he saw the killer, while he took the initiative to go downstairs to get his wife back. He told the killer to go up there if he wanted a girl. The killer was so angry that he shot the man in the leg to force the girl downstairs. Sure enough, the girl came down with a gun. At this moment, the lights began to flicker on and off. The man took the opportunity to pounce on the killer, pressed him against the wall, stabbed the killer in the neck with a knife, and the killer pulled the trigger at the last moment. The two opponents who had been in a stalemate for a day finally came to an end. Finally, the girl found the killer in the dark and planned to give him a last try, but there was no bullet in the gun. The killer never imagined that the man had been using an empty gun, and just when the girl thought the man was dead, the man who had been protecting her actually opened his eyes.